Hi, everybody. So I wanted to talk about the most recent book that we read in the Sober Edge book club, where all the sober ladies hang out. So last week we got together as a group and we discussed Laura McKowen's book, Push Off From Here, The 9 Essential Truths to Get You Through Sobriety and Everything Else. And according to Laura, change is messy, progress is rarely linear, but we can always push off from here. And that's where the title comes from. So, the 9 Essential Truths is a list that she came up with when she was 2 years sober. Somebody had reached out and said, "Hey, my sister is struggling. I need some help. Do you have any guidance?" And she came up with her 9 things. And now Laura uses those 9 things in every single meeting that she has at the Luckiest Club. So if you're familiar with Laura's work, you probably already know about the 9 things. I'll just do a rundown really quick of the 9 things. It's not your fault. It is your responsibility. It is unfair that this is your thing. This is your thing. This will never stop being your thing until you face it. You cannot do it alone. Only you can do it. You are loved, and we will never stop reminding you of these things. So in the book, it's a mix of some personal stories and a lot of education, a lot of actually really cool, interesting stats around alcohol and addiction. She talks about, the value of community, the radical honesty, that healing is a continual process. So those are a lot of the themes, a lot about trauma too and addiction. So as a group, when we were talking about number 3 on the list, which is it is unfair that this is your thing, the discussion that came up was, we all agreed that in the beginning, in those really early days of sobriety, it felt really unfair. And I like to say that, not drinking at that stage truly felt like a punishment. But then, of course, with time and healing and learning about how alcohol affects the body and the nervous system and everything that I've been doing over the past few years with coaching and learning about neuroscience and all that good stuff, now I wouldn't have it any other way. I am so grateful to be sober. It's become a true gift. And and I think a lot too about how, for me, I was in that gray area for many, many years. I drank for 20 years. I was in the gray area I would say about 95% of that time. And just a reminder, a gray area drinker it's that space in between the two extremes. So one extreme is a now and again drinker, somebody who drinks about 10 drinks per calendar year. And then the other end is the extreme end where you need some kind of medical intervention, treatment, and just your drinking is so very extreme. So you're outside that gray area. And I would argue that I was in that more extreme category for probably about 5% of that 20 years. So because for over 2 years I was I was pretty extreme. And, the interesting thing about that is, now that I can look back and reflect, even though it was really painful and really hard, and it felt like it was going on forever, just being in that deep, dark place. There were days where I couldn't get through a day without drinking during the worst of it. But, looking back, I'm actually glad that I had, such a harrowing experience, because it made me want to dig deep, learn more, and figure out how to stop drinking altogether. Whereas, if it didn't get that bad, I would have just been on this, I would have been on the drinking roller coaster for God knows how many more decades. And I'm just so grateful to now I'm coming up on 3 years very soon. And these have been truly the best 3 years of my life, the happiest, the healthiest, the most just overall satisfactory. I've done so many new things, met so many new people, and I've really been finding myself, finding my purpose, and it's just amazing. So there was something positive that came out of such a horrible situation. So there were so many awesome nuggets in Push Off From Here. So many that I had to take a lot of notes. So one of the things that she pointed out is ACE scores of 4 or more. ACE scores, if you're not familiar, are adverse childhood experiences. And there's a list of 10 questions, and these are negative experiences that people go through in their childhood, so 1 to age 17. And I actually learned all about this when I went through Jolene Park's gray area drinking Nourish Method training for the gray area drinking coaching. But I like that Laura pointed out that out of the 10 questions, if you have a score of 4 or more, you have a 700% increased risk of substance use disorder. So that is very telling. And some of the questions, I won't go through all 10. I mean, that's A scores are a whole topic unto themselves, but some of the questions, just to give you an example, were your parents divorced? Was there, was anybody in the home abusing substances such as alcohol or other drugs? Did anyone go to prison? Was there violence, and things like that? So it only takes 4 out of 10 to increase, that risk by 700%, which is huge. So that speaks a lot to how trauma is related to addiction. And if you have any ACE score, then you're 2 to 4 times more likely to use alcohol or drugs at an earlier age. And trauma is trauma. So out of that list of 10, it doesn't matter which ones you say yes to. If they're all equal in terms of the level of trauma, and then the correlation later on with substance abuse. So it doesn't matter if you answered the prison question yes or the divorce question. It's all trauma. The body recognizes it as the same kind of trauma. She shared that a Dr. Daniel Sumrock at the University of Tennessee, he said, he defines addiction as ritualized compulsive comfort seeking. And he said, that basically you're having a normal response to that adversity in childhood, much like if you get cut and you start bleeding. Like, bleeding is a natural response to being cut. So seeking out something that makes you feel better because of trauma, it makes sense. The MASH delusion of alcohol culture. She points out how alcohol is the deadliest, and yet the most socially acceptable, and the most accessible drug that there is. Alcohol is more harmful than heroin and crack cocaine, and it's the 3rd leading cause of preventable deaths. Global spending on alcohol advertising. In 2023, it was projected that advertisers were going to spend $7.7 billion on advertising alcohol. And average alcohol beverage sales, in the United States in 2020 happened to reach $222 billion. So that is a lot. We know that there was a huge increase, about a 25% increase in drinking during the pandemic. She shared that she heard a clinical psychologist who did his PhD on alcohol in the body. He said, if alcohol came out today, it would be banned because of how quickly it permeates the blood-brain barrier and how quickly it changes our body chemistry. She brought up the 2018 Lancet article and the 2022 World Heart Federation article. Both of those articles agree that there is no safe amount. This is how much is safe, 0. And the article from 2022 pointed out that the alcohol industry has perpetuated misleading information about the benefits of drinking alcohol, much like how the tobacco companies used to get away with that. So when you hear about red wine being good for the heart, that's because big alcohol paid to have somebody say that. She pointed out in 2019, there were 14 million people in the United States struggling with alcohol, and only 5% get treatment every year. Women, alcohol use disorder increased 83.7% between 2002 and 2013. Alcohol cirrhosis rose 50% during that time, and alcohol ER visits rose 70% 2006 to 2014. 4,000 teens are killed every single year because of alcohol, and that it causes more teen deaths than any illegal drug combined, any illegal substances combined. She points out, why can't we choose our loved ones over alcohol? Because once you get to a certain point and you become addicted to alcohol, addiction chooses for you. Your brain gets rewired, and your decision-making power in the prefrontal cortex gets impaired. And basically, you become a slave to responding to cravings. And you're really responding, at that point, you're responding to cravings for survival. And it becomes more important than food or shelter or anything else. It becomes number one. And honestly, I can attest to that, because when I was at the worst of my worst, I was choosing alcohol over food and water regularly, which led to all kinds of health problems, as you can imagine, especially that puffy face that I've shared pictures of. Let's see. Oh, she brought up how the mind-body connection through somatic therapies, and how in AA, this is completely absent. AA doesn't acknowledge the body. So also, there's something called top-down versus bottom-up. And this is basically the whole premise of gray area drinking and using neuroscience and the nervous system to heal cravings. Because 20% is controlled of our brain is controlled by the prefrontal cortex, which is top down. 80% is coming from the body, from our limbic brain. Our old ancient brain has more power, and don't forget, that's run on emotion and sensation. It has more power than this. So if you engage in a treatment that only works on this, such as talk therapy. I love talk therapy. I've been seeing a counselor for years. I probably always will have her in my Rolodex. It's an important, because that's 20%, right? That's an important 20%. You don't want to forget that. But you have to bring in the body. You have to bring in physiology. Otherwise, you're leaving 80% of the equation behind. And trauma causes disruptions in the brain that lead someone to become hypervigilant and stuck in flight or fight, which makes a lot of sense. So those are just some of the awesome tidbits that I took notes on from the book. So I highly recommend it. It's a book that it's there for whether you're newly sober or you have many years under your belt. And by the way, book club, we have a free month right now. There's a fun promotion going on where normally there's a monthly fee to be a part of our group, just because there's so much that you get as a member, including authors who come and visit. So this month in December, Meg Geiswhite, who wrote Intoxicating Lies, is going to come and visit our book club, which is really exciting. And in the past, we've actually had Amanda Kuda come, who wrote Unbottled Potential, Peggy Cooney, who wrote The Side of Alcohol, and Tony Laura, who wrote Dry Humping. So now we're about to have our fourth author in just a matter of months. So really exciting stuff. So all you need to do, I will link the website for the, I would tag the book club below this video, and just click on the link. And then there's a promo code. It's just D free. And then you can join us this month. You can join the Facebook community. You can join our meeting. You can join the author Zoom call, which will be coming up, and other great things that are happening. So if you have any questions about anything I shared, please let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching, and push off from here.